Punishment, a masterpiece by Fyodor Dostoyevsky, a Russian novelist. This is a murder story. This novel is beyond the words to be praised. It's about individuals, society, and how they interact with each other. The main character in this story is Raskolnikov, where certain other characters are there as well, like Pyotr Petrovich, Marmeladov, and certain other characters as well, where there is a main character Sonia, which was a lover of Raskolnikov. The murder story starts with an individual suffering with loneliness and poverty. He was poor that he was even financed by his family. He wasn't financed too much that he even carried on his studies. He even pawned things to an old lady. He later on murdered that old lady and her sister as well. Now, how this murder was executed, it was foolproof and there was no evidence beyond this murder. Now, the understanding of the murder wasn't done by the people in that society, nor by anyone else, because it wasn't a murder for robbery or for anything else. In this story, Fyodor Dostoyevsky mainly highlights that suffering is inevitable. He was suffering by himself, neither he was convicted and nor he was in the suspicion of by the police. He was tormenting himself. The murder which he has done was foolproof and there was no evidence, but still he have that sadness in his soul. Now this suffering was inevitable, and as Fyodor Dostoyevsky said that suffering is inevitable, you must have to accept it. Then later on in his life he met Sonia. Sonia was his lover and she also was a prostitute. But he himself told her the story of his murder. And sometimes the Fyodor Dostoyevsky said that sometimes you need a person, a human touch to have your suffering minimized. Now the suffering can only be minimized by a human touch. Sometimes you need humans to understand your feelings, and Raskolnikov thinks that Sonia understands him. Now how the Sonia character acted in the Raskolnikov story, mainly she said to Raskolnikov that go to the police station and surrender yourself, because if you accept this suffering, if you accept these all things, then your suffering will be minimalized. Now Fyodor Dostoyevsky in this whole story mainly portrays the idea of suffering. There was another character, Nikolai, who was also suffering, but he mainly accepts his suffering. He goes to jail. There was another character, Svidrigailov. Svidrigailov was mainly about the murder which he has done of his own wife. Now he shot himself because the suffering was too much high. Now how he went to the jail, how he accepted this all suffering, this whole story is about this. The acceptance of suffering and pain, and the acceptance that he will go to jail and he will surrender himself. Now Fyodor Dostoyevsky highlights there that you need a loved one to wait for you. You want a person which can always ask you that when will you come from the jail, and that person was Sonia in this story. Now Raskolnikov also has a mother and a sister as well, and in this story he also highlights that the mother's love is unimaginable, how she was tormented by the feeling that his son will go somewhere else. When he goes to jail, he was thinking about many things like his suffering, the other people, the Svidrigailov, and these things mainly tormented him. When will he go outside and will start a new life? Now this jail was, as Sonia said, that you will start a new life, and this life as a murderer will end up. Be in mind that Raskolnikov was a person who was very literate and he also wrote journals there. Now what is the story about? The story is about suffering, individual suffering, and the societal pressures which he was acted upon. There was also a psychological test and psychological games which was being done by Pyotr Petrovich in this whole story. And Pyotr Petrovich make him the suspicious character in the story, and he was playing games with his mind and he tormented his mental state by meeting the Raskolnikov. It's a must read, and you will understand that how Fyodor Dostoyevsky has given you the minute details about his characters. Those people who are interested in sociology, in psychology, and in somehow philosophy, and the philosophy behind the suffering, loneliness, so it will be a good read for them.